All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is Sean here at Zyxel. As we go through today, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in using chat. If for some reason chat is disabled, like it was in my last webinar, question and answer part of the Zoom interface should still be live, and you can send in any comments or questions using Q&A. I can see both of those. This is our monthly Nebula webinar. It's sort of an introduction to Nebula. So if you're a new partner or you're an old partner that hasn't really played with Nebula and you're trying to get a little bit better handle on what Nebula is and what Nebula does, you're in the right place. Or if you're just looking for a refresher, if you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, today's probably not the day for you. I do a periodic webinar. The marketing changes the names from month to month. Sometimes it's called like Nebula 101 or tips and tricks or best practices, where we do go a little bit more in depth on using Nebula itself. And then on top of that, if you are one of our reseller partners, you do have access to our education and learning site where we've got some interactive training that's available for you and your employees on actually using and configuring Nebula. I think some of that is locked behind a paywall, but if you reach out to your salesperson, Andy, David, or Jacob, they can get you past that without having to spend any money. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, and we'll start again since this is one that a lot of new people join. Just one quick slide here on who Nebula or who Zyxel is. So Zyxel Networks has been around for, I think, 35 years now, or pretty darn close to it. This slide's a little bit old. We got started all the way back in 1989. Our corporate headquarters is based out of Hsinchu, Taiwan, and that's where we've always been. Our US office is based out of the Anaheim, California area, which is also where we've always been. We've moved around a couple times, but all within the same about half-mile little quarter here where Anaheim and Placentia, California meet. At night, we do get to hear and see the fireworks from our office from Disneyland. But we've been making computer networking equipment for a long time. I know Zyxel isn't exactly a household brand, especially in the United States. And the reason for that is because the US office for the longest time had chosen to focus specifically on the ISP market, specifically targeting large ISPs. So not a lot was done to promote and market the business networking products that we've had over the years. We have been trying to change that slowly and surely over the last few years, but I know a lot of times when you're dealing with customers, you say Zyxel, they don't know who that is. You type Zyxel in an email, they don't know how to pronounce it. It's unfortunately something that's there, but you can use this knowledge here today to reassure them that we are not some new company. We are not one of these weird ABC named Chinese companies. We are somebody based out of Taiwan that's been doing this for a long time. A lot of our products are TAA compliant. And we've literally shipped, hundreds of millions of networking devices over the years. So Zyxel is part of the Zyxel group, excuse me. So I am part of what's called Zyxel Network. So it is kind of confusing. There are two different Zyxels, both under the Zyxel group. So there's at least three Zyxels. So in North America, there's the Zyxel Networks, which is me, probably the guys you're dealing with. We are focused on business networking equipment. And then there is Zyxel Communications, our sister company, who is focused on the ISP side of the business. And then we've got a number of other sister companies. A few of them are listed on the current slide. The only one of note there is MitraStar. MitraStar is our manufacturing arm. They're the ones who make, say, all of our products, but a considerable number of our products. They are one of our sister companies. They used to be headquartered out of the same building as us, and they maintain manufacturing facilities in Taiwan, China, and I think a few other countries are opening up either just recently or soon. So yeah, that's who we are. So now you're here for Nebula. Let's go ahead and start talking about Nebula. So what is Nebula? Nebula was the first full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. So what does that mean? Um, so when we got started with Nebula, we launched it all the way back in 2016, and we actually started developing it, several years before that. And back at that time, cloud networking wasn't as ubiquitous as it is today. At that point, most solutions that provided some form of cloud management were only focused on access points. And really the only company that was doing cloud management for what we would call a full stack, so the full networking environment, was Meraki, who had just recently been purchased by Cisco. And we saw what Meraki was doing and we said, this is great. This is the future. But this is something that's going to be really beneficial for smaller MSPs, smaller VARs, smaller network admins. Where at that time, and really still to that day, Meraki was really heavily focused on the enterprise with the pricing to match. So we thought there was a good place for us to come in there and bring that sort of Meraki experience to the SMB. And so that's exactly what we did. So again, we launched all the way back in 2016, actually shipping products to end users and VARs hands. And we've been constantly improving it ever since. Again, the slide's a little bit old. It says 61 supported products. It's a lot more than that today. Basically, just about any sort of managed switch, access point, firewall gateway that we sell today is Nebula compatible. So the idea behind Nebula or cloud management in general, if you haven't done it before, is to take all these different things that go into setting up a new customer's network, from, buying the hardware, configuring the hardware, storing the logs, figuring out remote access, etc., and simplifying the process and eliminating parts of the things that you may need to set up, things that you may need to buy, things that you may need to configure, saving you money as well as saving you time, which is also, in the end of the day, money. So it makes your job simpler, easier, simplifies things for you in all different aspects when it comes to setting up a network. So Nebula is here to provide hassle-free network management. So we'll go through some of the key features here in Nebula. We won't drill down too far. So first off, you can start setting up and configuring your equipment without having to take it out of the box. At any point, you can log into Nebula. It's nebula.zyxel.com, and you can set up your customers. You can start setting up their sites and getting that set up in advance. Certain settings, such as your SSID settings and stuff like that, those can be configured before you even settle on a product. Once you have settled on your products and they get shipped out to you, to configure the device, all you do is add that device to Nebula and you can start configuring it. And the way you do that is there is a QR code on the outside of the box. You simply scan that. Again, assign the device to your customer and the network that the device is going to be used at, and you now have full access to configure that device. So you don't have to take the device out of the box. You don't have to plug it in. You don't have to access its GUI. You don't have to tell it it's going to be web managed. None of that. It's just scan the QR code and go. So we've also got a number of things that just simplify setting up a new network. So we've got a wizard, we've got some tools in there. So when you go in and say, hey, I'm setting up a new customer, it will walk you through the steps to at least get a basic network up and running. Just takes a couple of minutes, really simple and easy to do. So to use Nebula, you just have to buy Zyxel Nebula compatible hardware. There's nothing else you need to do. Nebula is hosted in the Amazon AWS cloud. We run and maintain that for you. All you need to do is go to nebula.zyxel.com to use it. So again, you don't have to tell the device it's going to be cloud managed. You don't have to point it to a server somewhere. You don't have to buy any additional hardware. There's no cloud keys. There's no CNA devices you need to buy to use it. There's no additional software you need to set up somewhere. So you don't need to set up a virtual machine or load our software on a PC or server somewhere. It just works. The Nebula client is built into our hardware and the cloud is run by us. So when you're using Nebula, anywhere you have access to a web browser and internet, you have access to all of your customers, all of their devices, or at least all of their Zyxel devices and all of their networks. So Nebula's got a number of built-in tools to make things simpler for you. So one of the things you can do is Nebula has its own cloud-hosted database. So you can use that to provide user management. So you can use that, for instance, for WPA2 Enterprise or WPA3 Enterprise for user authentication. You can use it for captive portal guest authentication. You can use it for MAC filtering, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all built in. And of course, if you'd prefer to use your own solution, we do support, standard protocols such as Radius, if you'd like to do that. Nebula access points have built-in tools to make providing guest access very, very easy to do. So, and this works, and this is all built into our access points themselves. So if you've got a customer and you're using Zyxel access points, but you're using a different brand of router or firewall, doesn't matter. You can still provide captive portal on the access points. Not only that, our access points can provide NAT. So you can provide your guest network their own subnet separate from the main corporate subnet. Um, just another layer of isolation that you can use. Obviously, if you're doing guest net access, you should be using VLANs, but if you're at a customer site, you're not replacing all of their equipment. Some of their equipment doesn't support VLANs, not a problem. Again, we can put them on their own subnet, on their own IP range, separate from the corporate network. But in addition to that, we have a cool feature that's built in on the access points called layer 2 isolation. And basically, it will not let a wireless client send data to any device on the network unless you explicitly whitelist that device. So for a typical guest network type of deployment, you would only give them access to the router WAN, or excuse me, the router MAC address that grants them internet access. And so basically the access point will see if they try to access any other device based on that layer 2 MAC address that they should not be accessing, it simply drops the packets. They cannot send packets to any device except for those you whitelist. Also makes it easy for you to provide access to certain shared resources. So if you have vendors visiting, you can give them the ability to log into that guest network. They can access the internet and they can access the shared printer. They can access a network storage device where you want them to upload their data sheets or video presentations, etc. too. So really flexible. And again, all of that's working without having to have a VLAN aware network. So when it comes to Nebula, you never have to go on site. Unless the hardware physically breaks or somebody physically unplugs something, all configurations, all firmware updates are done through the cloud and then they're pushed out to the devices themselves. So it should help eliminate the number of times you have to send a truck roll out to a customer site. So just on the wireless side of things, we do support mesh. I bring that up. You know, mesh, for those of you that are old like me, you might remember, I think it was maybe 15 years ago when the idea of using mesh in business was being pushed very, very heavily by a certain unnamed company. And for a while there, everyone was looking and talking about it, but at the end of the day, it didn't work too well. With Wi-Fi 7 and 6 gigahertz in particular, mesh for businesses now starts to make a lot more sense. With Wi-Fi 7, you can do MLO mesh, or excuse me, not MLO. You can, yeah, MLO mesh. So instead of using one radio for mesh, you now use all of your radios for mesh. So it gives you enough bandwidth, and more importantly, it helps deal with the issues traditionally that plague mesh deployments of limited of interference issues due to the limited radio availability. So you've got a network that the 6 gigahertz radio is giving you plenty of bandwidth, but also automatically can send data over the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz radio if something happens on that 6 or vice versa. So it's much more robust than it's used to be. It's much more bandwidth is being provided than used to be. So mesh is now starting to make a lot of sense. And with our hardware, it's really simple. I believe mesh itself is actually enabled by default. If not, it's just a simple one button click in the Nebula interface to enable mesh. And now you can add additional access points without needing to provide them Ethernet backhaul. They will automatically mesh with other Zyxel access points until they get to one that can provide that wired connection back to the network. And most of our new Wi-Fi 7 access points are powered by USB-C. So again, if you don't have Ethernet with PoE to power them up, USB-C makes it really easy. You can use any vendor's USB-C PD, plug-in brick. I don't know what you want to call those, power adapters, charging adapters, and they'll work with our AP. So it makes it really easy to provide power wherever it is you might have need to mount these mesh nodes going forward. And of course, we support all the industry standards as far as security goes, as far as fast roaming goes, etc. There has been a recent change, and let's go ahead and talk about it today real quick. The Wi-Fi Alliance has changed how things are implemented with Wi-Fi 7 to be certified. So as of a couple months ago, hardware that was being Wi-Fi 7 certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance, if it was to be submitted today, would fail. So they've made a couple big changes to Wi-Fi 7, and we have implemented those with the latest firmware that rolled out at the end of July. So now the Wi-Fi Alliance is requiring that if you are using Wi-Fi 7, You must use WPA3 encryption. You may not use backwards compatible with WPA2 implementation. It must be pure WPA3. And you must have MLO enabled by default. So just be aware of that if you put our device into Wi-Fi 7 mode, which is, I believe, what it is by default out of the box. It will only allow you to use WPA3. It will have MLO enabled. And that's because that's now what the Wi-Fi Alliance is requiring. And so because of that, if you use DPPSK, that is now broken. DPPSK does not work with WPA3 based on the WPA3 standard. So if you don't want to use MLO, if you don't want to use WPA3, if you need to use dynamic pre-shared key, you just need to go in and change the radio to Wi-Fi 6 mode, and then everything's fine. So again, I know it's been a surprise to a couple people. We did send out a couple emails about this, but it's not a decision that we made. This is something that the industry apparently made, and the Wi-Fi Alliance is enforcing going forward on all new products. Okay, enough about that. Going on here to the switch side of things, we've got lots of cool features on your switches. So your switches are automatically virtually stacked, and what that means is it allows you to go in, select ports across multiple switches, and configure them all at once. We've got a nice, easy visualization, so you can quickly and easily see, which Ethernet ports on the switch are plugged in, what speed those connections are, whether or not PoE is being provided, etc. And we give you some nice tools to let you visualize what's been going on the network and to help you do some basic troubleshooting if your customers are complaining about issues. Some other features we've got on our switches, we have a loop guard protection. We have the ability to block it if somebody plugs in their own router and plugs in the plugs in the LAN of that router into your corporate network. So they can't hijack DHCP. We will block that. We've got some cool tools on there, like the ability to automatically look at the MAC address of a device, and based on their MAC address, assign them to a specific VLAN to help simplify things so you don't have to do it on a port basis, etc. And basically everything I've talked about today, at least to some extent, is absolutely free. Nebula is free for you to use. You don't have to pay us extra money to use it. And the free version of Nebula gives you access to all the core features of most products. We have some IP camera type switches that have some extra features that require ProPack. We have some extra other bonus features with some optional licenses, but the core functionality of all of our products is available in Nebula for free. And Nebula is limited to all of your customers, all of their devices, all of their sites. So there is no limit. There are no limits on our free version of Nebula. These days, most of our competition is no longer offering any sort of free tier. And those that are usually heavily nerfing just how many devices or customers you can manage through the free version of their cloud. Our cloud is still free with no limitations on the number of devices, sites, etc., that you can manage with Nebula. So we'll talk really here about Nebula Flex, because this is a term you will see popping around on our website. And basically what it was when we first launched Nebula back in 2016, we sort of followed the Cisco Meraki route, where if you wanted cloud, you bought Meraki. If you wanted traditional management, you bought Cisco, and never should the two meet. And we realized that just doesn't work. A lot of you guys out there, you're smaller, you've got some customers that you may want the cloud for, some customers that you don't. It just makes life simpler if you can just standardize on certain models. So we've, for the most part, eliminated dedicated Nebula hardware and introduced what's called Nebula Flex. So Nebula Flex just means this piece of hardware can be used the traditional managed way, or it can be used in the cloud, your choice. And switching between modes is really simple. Out of the box, all of our devices are your traditional management, right? You log into them through a web GUI or through SSH or whatever it happens to be, and you configure them directly. We still do that, and that is the default. But if you want to manage them in the cloud, all you do is you scan that QR code, assign the device to a customer and to a site, and once you've done that, the device within a minute or two will say, hey, I see you want to manage me in the cloud. It will reboot into cloud managed mode, and it will download the configuration that you've set up for it in the cloud. So now you've got a cloud managed device. And again, you haven't had to do anything to the device itself. Just adding the device to our Nebula cloud and assigning it to a site and customers, all it takes. And if you ever decide to put it back into standalone mode, exact same process in reverse. Go into Nebula, remove it from your inventory, it will detect that and it will automatically put itself into standalone mode with a default blank configuration ready to go. So as I've hinted at or mentioned earlier, there are some optional licenses for you. The free version of Nebula we call the base pack, and that's the default standard. You can upgrade to Plus or Pro pack. And if at any point you decide to stop using those, it will just fall back to the free version. You do not get locked out. You don't lose access to your hardware because you're not paying us money like certain other vendors do. No, it just drops back to the standard free version for you. So there is a fee to use Plus and Pro pack. Plus isn't that popular, so we're just going to mostly kind of ignore it going forward. Pro pack is by and large, if you're buying optional licenses, this is what you go for. You get a free 30-day trial with any new organization you set up. So you can always test it out before having to give us any money on it. But this is the main thing here. We also have this MSP license pack. And the MSP license is a per user pack. So the Plus and Pro pack are device licenses. So every device in an organization needs to have a license to switch the org to Pro pack. And you can have multiple orgs. Let's just make that clear. An org for Zyxel terminology or Nebula terminology is basically each of your customers would be their own org. So if you have a customer, that needs to be a Pro pack, you would buy a license for all of their devices, and then the organization would convert to Pro pack. The MSP pack license is a user license that you assign to one of your admins that unlocks some additional features for that admin. So again, just to hit here, you generally are going to have your master account, and then all of your customers are going to be organizations underneath that. All of the organizations by default will be using free, but as you create each new org, you do get a 30-day trial of Pro. If you want to keep using Pro after that 30 days, you simply buy licenses for every device in that organization. And those licenses are usually annual licenses. We do now have it set up where you can simply log in and buy the licenses online, and you can have it set up to automatically bill you every month or whatever, based on how many devices are currently being used by each individual organization. Lots of flexibility there these days. So, and then if you add a device that doesn't have a license, you'll be given 2 weeks essentially to add a license back in, basically a 2-week grace period when a license expires, or when you add a new device that doesn't come with a license. So we'll just go through this really quickly. Those things on the top up here, these are Nebula Flex. These things at the bottom are Nebula Flex Pro. So what does that mean? What does Nebula Flex Pro mean? Nebula Flex Pro just means when you buy the device, it comes bundled with a 1-year Pro Pack license. Whereas Nebula Flex devices do not. If you want a Nebula Pro license, you just buy it for these, or with these, it comes bundled with them. So Nebula Flex is our NWA series access points and our 1900 series switches. And on our firewall products, it's any of our firewall products that do not come bundled with a gold or UTM license pack. And then Nebula Flex Pro is any of our W series access points, our 1350, 2000, and 3000 series switches, and then any of our security firewall products that come bundled out of the box with a 1-year UTM security license pack. So not too hard. So we will here, I'm not going to hit all of the items on these next couple of slides, so I'll hit some of the main ones for you. This is just the main differences between the free version of Nebula and the paid Pro Pack version of Nebula. And again, I'm gonna just ignore the Plus Pack because we don't sell a lot of those. Just to try to keep things simple and streamlined here for you. But basically, all versions give you access to cloud management, zero-touch deployment, over-the-air firmware updates with basic scheduling, access to our mobile app, the ability to set up multiple types of administrators, etc., access to all of the core features of the hardware itself, etc., like that. So some of the differences comes to cloud storage of the logs. So the free version of Nebula will store 24 hours worth of logs for you in the cloud for free. Pro Pack, you get a year's worth of logs stored in the cloud. Now, if you're using the free version of Nebula and you need more log storage, we do support syslog. You can always export the logs via the syslog format to whatever server or hardware you want to use for that going forward. The next one is the number of admin accounts. And this is done on a per org basis. So in Nebula, each org would have a cap. In the case of the free version of Nebula, you can have up to 5 admin accounts for each of your orgs, where with Pro Pack, it's an unlimited number of admin accounts. The next one is we have that user authentication database I talked about a number of slides ago. So if you're using, you want to use that, the free version of Nebula limits you to 50 entries into that cloud database. Pro Pack, it's unlimited. And then some of the other Pro Pack only features here. Um, the ability to get push notifications when devices go offline, the ability to automatically generate weekly or monthly reports that summarize what's been going on your network and email those to your customer with your logo on them. That's a Pro Pack feature. We have this cool automatic topology view where we automatically map out everything on your network and show you what devices are connected to which other devices upstream. So it's really a nice, friendly way to do some troubleshooting. It even gives you access to certain configuration options for all the devices, including some non-Nebula devices through that topology view. So that's a Pro Pack feature. Um, some advanced guest network stuff, such as using paid vouchers or advanced AAA radius flags, that requires Pro Pack. And then we've got a number of cool tools. We've got some AI tools on the switches, some AI tools that monitor and can automatically tweak and adjust your wireless network. Those are Pro Pack features, et cetera, et cetera. This chart that I've been going through, this is available online. You should be able to find it with a Google search. It's actually a much longer, more detailed one. But if you can't find it, just reach out to your salesperson. Andy, David, or Jacob can email it to you, no problem. So just showing a couple of the features here real quick. This is that automatic topology view. You see we automatically map out what's been plugged into which other ones. You can see your client devices, you can see your switches, you can see everything, your access points, etc. So we do offer DPPSK. I know a number of you like to use it, but again, thanks to the Wi-Fi Alliance, it is no longer allowed to be used on Wi-Fi 7. So you do need to, if you're using a Wi-Fi 7 AP, you do need to put it back into Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 6E mode to use dynamic pre-shared key. And dynamic pre-shared key is actually a really nice feature. Basically, it allows you to broadcast one SSID. It eliminates some of the hassles that go along with 802.1x authentication for multiple users. And instead, you just give each user their own unique pre-shared key. When they connect to the SSID and log in with that pre-shared key, it automatically recognizes them and puts them on the VLAN that you want to assign them to. And again, we have AI or machine learning or whatever the buzzword of today is for it, where we can automatically monitor and alert you to things and make some configuration changes for you on the Wi-Fi. We talked about the automatic topology view. Another feature here that's in ProPack, which is kind of nice, is the ability to automatically recognize MAC addresses of certain devices and automatically assign them to a VLAN for you for that. Going forward here, some other optional licenses for you. So these are not really Nebula licenses. These are just general, extra features that we offer on some of our products. So one of them here is called Connect and Protect. So what that is that is a UTM-like security solution that can be applied on our access points. So again, if you've got a situation where you're upgrading the customer's network, but the router is provided by the ISP, it doesn't have the features you want, or the ISP won't give you access to them, you can provide that additional level of security to your wireless users at the very least by using this optional, Connect and Protect license. And that's done on a per AP basis. So, you don't have to put it on all of your APs. You can just do it on those, for instance, that provide Wi-Fi to the public or something like that. Another cool feature here is called collaborative detection and response. This allows our W series access points to coordinate with our firewall products to provide additional security for your local wireless network. And the idea behind that is, traditionally you're mostly focused on threats coming in through the WAN port on your network. Today, where you've got people, using the same mobile devices at home or when they're out traveling for business or when they're on vacation and then coming back and connecting to your corporate network. In theory, they could get infected while they're out and about and then bring it onto your network. Collaborative detection and response helps your network detect those users and segregate them off before they can infect other devices on your network. So Matthew's asking about filtering by MAC OUI. Yeah, so for the automatic VLAN tool, it is based on OUI. I'm just saying MAC address to keep it simple, but for those that don't know, the OUI is the first, I think it's 6 digits of the MAC address, and those are vendor specific. We've actually got two different ways of doing this. One, we've got what's called a voice VLAN feature. So basically, instead of manually configuring a VLAN for your VoIP phones, we just have sort of a default one with best settings applied to it. And when you have that set up, it gives you a drop down. And we've got the OUIs already preloaded for most vendors who make VoIP equipment in there. So you can just go through the drop down list and choose what you want. And then we also have this feature basically available for any type of VLAN. And in that case, there's no drop down. You manually have to type in the OUI. And then it basically works the same. We see that OUI and we will automatically put that device on the VLAN that you've specified for that OUI. And you can set up multiple OUIs pointing to different VLANs. Hope that answers your question, Matthew. Going forward here, talked about collaborative detection response. Next slide. So this is about using our security products here for provisioning and synchronization between your sites. So basically, when you're setting up multiple gateways doing site-to-site VPN, it's really easy to do in Nebula. You just go in, you choose the devices or the sites that you want to network together. You choose the topology and the level of encryption you want to use, and then we handle everything else from there. So it dramatically simplifies from traditional VPN configuration for site to site. And then we offer something similar for remote workers. Um, we have the ability here to send out scripts that can automatically configure VPN settings for the built-in apps on Windows and iOS devices. Um, And then we have something called secure Wi-Fi, which allows you to convert one of our access points into a cloud managed remote VPN appliance, right? So when it comes to setting up VPNs for remote workers, you're either configuring software, which can be kind of a pain and require you to touch their device. Maybe not that hard if they're connecting with a work laptop that they bring into the office periodically. But if they're using a desktop that's been at home, or you're sending out you know, a replacement device to the user's home and they don't come into the office that often, it can be kind of a pain to configure that. There are VPN appliances that you can send home to the users to use, but usually those are routers and they're sitting behind the existing router that comes from their ISP. They don't know how to port forward to it. And you get double netting issues. So the solution to that from us is this ability to convert an access point into a VPN appliance. So you simply give them the access point, they plug it into their existing router, and it broadcasts a special SSID that when they connect to it, essentially creates a VPN tunnel back to the main office for them to get the remote access done. Now that SSID does use 802.1x authentication and can use two-factor authentication to make sure only authorized devices are connecting to that special SSID and getting access to the remote network. So it's nice and secure. But because it's an access point, because it's not acting as a router, there's no double natting issues, and you can basically use it anywhere you've got a Ethernet connection. And then our Nebula infrastructure integrates with SecuReporter. For those of you that are not selling our security appliances, we have a centralized cloud-hosted reports platform, which trawls the logs for all of your security appliances and generates great graphs and reports and things like that. We make it really easy to jump from the Nebula interface over to SecuReporter and back to Nebula as needed, rather than treating them as two different solutions. So that's really it as far as introductions to Nebula. I do want to talk a little bit about the Nebula architecture because this is often where we get the most questions. So I hope this will probably answer most questions that you may have. But if it doesn't, when we get to the end of this slide and you have some questions, go ahead and send those in using the Q&A interface or chat. Again, I know we've been having problems since Zoom's changed some default settings where chat may not be working. So if it's not working, use question and answer. So basically, Nebula is hosted in AWS clouds. It is geographically spread out and dispersed. So that way, if AWS has some issues in one cluster somewhere, it should automatically fail over to other clusters. So you don't have much downtime. It's been very, very rare for Nebula itself to have downtime. Every now and then certain features may break for a short period of time due to some AWS issues. But the overall interface and reporting and stuff is up, and it's been pretty rock solid for us. But it is hosted in AWS. It's not something we've built in-house, so you aren't trusting us. It's not some weird, proprietary cloud platform. It's Amazon AWS. Now, this is key. Um, HIPAA, HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance. There is no problems using Nebula with those. We have plenty of customers using Nebula with HIPAA and PCI compliant things. But also for those of you that are multinational, right, there different countries have different rules when it comes to things like network data retention, log requirements, privacy requirements, etc. So because Zyxel is a global company and Nebula is a global platform that's geographically dispersed, we're basically able to configure whatever the local laws are in any country where we allow Nebula to be used, which is most of them. So, if you've deployed it in the US and your customer also has some European locations, no problem. You'll still be able to use Nebula. Nebula complies with all the GDPR and other requirements that Europe has. I think Europe's probably the worst when it comes to some of these requirements, or has the most that you have to comply with, but we comply with all of those. Europe has rules on where servers have to be located. So great. If your customer's in Europe, it's using the European servers. If it's in America, it's using the American servers. If it's in Canada, they're using the Canadian servers, etc. So um, don't worry about PCI. Don't worry about HIPAA. It's absolutely compatible with those. As long as the rest of your network configuration is set up correctly, Nebula shouldn't add any extra steps for you. And we get a lot of questions about the security of the data being transmitted from our devices to the cloud. So again, unlike some of the other vendors out there, we did not homebrew our own security protocols. We are using an industry standard called NetConf, NETCONF. So that's what we use to encrypt and authenticate the connections between our devices and the cloud to make sure your data is safe. And then just to highlight here, wireless LAN traffic stays on your wireless LAN. LAN traffic stays on your customer's LAN. WAN traffic goes directly out to the internet. None of your customer's traffic is going out to our clouds. There was another cloud provider a few years ago. I doubt it still works this way, but at least at one point, all data that you used for them was being sent to their cloud. So obviously that can be a bit of a nightmare from a PCI and HIPAA compliance. So with us, nothing touches our cloud except for management traffic, right? The log data being uploaded from the device to the cloud, and any configuration changes you're making, those configuration changes are pushed out and from the cloud to the device itself. But otherwise, nothing else, nothing private, nothing that would affect PCI or HIPAA compliance is there for you. Another common question we get is, fiber gets cut off, I lose internet access, what happens? I know on certain other cloud solutions out there, after a few days, they stop working because they can't authenticate with the cloud, not with us. Those devices will continue to operate as they were last configured up until the point that the internet connection is restored. So I think that's all of the main questions we had here for you. I would say most people who have converted to Nebula stick with Nebula. Most of our customers are using, I think, the free version of Nebula, but ProPack is very popular, especially for those of you that are MSPs. Generally the sticking point for most of you, if you've never used a cloud solution before, and it takes a little bit to get used to, is that when you make configuration changes in the cloud, it can take up to 2 minutes. I would say on average it's 1 minute for configuration changes to be pushed from the cloud to the device itself. But two is the standard max that we hit. Every now and then it may take up to 5. So that's the area where I think we get the most complaints, at least initially. But once you get used to that and realize that when you hit save, you've got to wait a minute or two for the changes to come out. And by the way, you can check in the Nebula interface if the device has the latest version of the config already loaded on it. So you don't have to sit there playing a guessing game. You can simply go into the device status page in Nebula, and it will tell you if they've already pushed out the whatever change you made to the device or not. So once you get used to that, it works really well. And I think in general, that's probably the biggest headache most people have, and all the benefits easily outweigh that. But just to summarize here for you, Nebula is easy to use, simplifies a lot of things you need to do. It has essentially unlimited scalability. It just makes life easier. So at the end of the day here, we do have a live demo. You can go at any point, you can go to nebula.zyxel.com. And there is a button at the bottom of the screen that will take you over to a live demo site that you can take a look at and play around with. If you are one of our VAR reseller partners, we do have a demo kit promotion right now going on, where we will send you a demo kit with a firewall, a switch, and an access point, let you play with them for 60 days. And then at the end of 60 days, you either send it back to us or you can choose to buy it at a deeply discounted price to keep that hardware. But we really think if you start using Nebula and actually start playing with it, you will find it is so much better than traditional network management. And that, guys, is the end of today's webinar. So again, if you have any questions, send them in using the Q&A or the web chat. And just to highlight here, most of our webinars are recorded and automatically uploaded to our YouTube channel. So today's webinar should be up there by tomorrow afternoon. So to find our webinars, Zyxel America channel is the channel you want to go. Each different region has their own Zyxel branded channel. So Zyxel America channel is the one you want for webinars by me or Try or Marcus. But we also, in addition to the webinars there, we have video case studies for you, success stories, product introductions, commercials, all sorts of fun stuff mixed in there. Although you do have to wade through all the webinars to get to those. And then if you're one of those LinkedIn people out there, we are Zyxel US channel on LinkedIn. And I am not seeing any questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. If you did have a question, you can email me directly. My email is seanr@zyxel.com, and Sean is spelled SHAWN. And then, of course, if you're one of our partners, you can always reach out to Marcus, Andy, or Jacob, or David, Andy, or Jacob, and they can loop me in, they can loop Marcus in, they can try in if needed, or if they don't have the answers, they can answer anything you've got. Thanks for joining us today. I hope to see you at one of our other webinars. We will have that, Nebula tips and tricks, best practices webinar coming up, I think next month. It'll either be September or October, so keep an eye for that if you'd like to go a little bit more in depth. I go through that and explains, how you should a little bit into how you should set up your networks for best management, how Nebula ownership works, some settings in Nebula you probably want to tweak and change, etc. So hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us today.